All right, I'll call the Planning and Development Committee to get to order and turn it over to Ms. Schuler.
Good evening. First, I just wanted to announce that there has been a change to the agenda. Items C and D have been withdrawn by the applicant for consideration.
Okay.
All right. First item on the agenda is item A, petition by Dorchester County Career and Technology Center to annex TMS numbers 145, 15, 03, 044, and 045, located at 431 through 441 Old Trolley Road and totaling approximately 2.13 acres, currently zoned CG General Commercial in Dorchester County and requested to be zoned UCMX Urban Corridor Mixed Use following annexation into the town of Somerville's municipal limits. This would be in Council District 3. Planning Commission held a public hearing and made a recommendation for approval at their meeting on December 16th, 2024.
Any discussion?
No, I'll make a motion that we approve, send it to council for.
I'll second that.
All right, motion is second, send to council to approve. Any other discussion? I'll call for the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next.
Next item on the agenda is petition by John H. and Nancy S. Hill to annex TMS number 13609000036, located at 1501 Central Avenue and totaling approximately 6.4 acres, currently zoned R2 Single Family Residential in Dorchester County and requested to be zoned UCMX Urban Corridor Mixed Use following annexation into the town of Somerville's municipal limits. This would be in Council District 4. Planning Commission held a public hearing and made a recommendation for approval at their meeting on December 16th, 2024.
Any questions from the committee?
The proposed zoning UCMX, what does that allow them to do? In my understanding is duplexes and townhomes, but not apartments.
UCMX does allow for both, the
Both.
townhomes or apartments.
Oh, it does allow for.
It does. Yeah. It also allows for commercial uses. It's more of the form-based zoning. The intent of the applicant is to do townhomes, but it could allow for either.
Well, that might be their intent, but if they were to sell it, the next applicant could build apartments there, right?
As long as it met ordinance requirements. It's a pretty small lot for apartments, but technically it could.
And being over 5 acres, they could do it under a PUD.
It could technically be used for a PUD. Generally, this small a size, it's not worth the time and effort to draft a PUD for this size property.
Thank you.
Any other discussions or questions? A motion?
Make a motion that we send it to full council with a recommendation for approval.
The second?
I'll second the motion to send it to full council, but I'm not
Not in favor.
jiving on the.
Okay.
I'll change my motion to just send it to full council without a recommendation.
Thank you, sir.
And the second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And item E?
Last item on the agenda is the request to rezone TMS number 13010000074, located at 917 West Fifth North Street, totaling approximately 0.27 acres, owned by Willie Jameson from NMX Neighborhood Mixed Use to NR Neighborhood Residential. This is in Council District 1. Planning Commission held a public hearing and made a recommendation for approval at their meeting on December 16th, 2024.
Any other questions?
Jesse, I'm all in favor of rezoning this, but looking at the zoning map, how is this not a spa zoning?
Well, I mean, you do, if you look at the zoning map, there is the lighter blue just across Wassabasa Road. So it's not completely outside of the area.
But not contiguous. So it doesn't have
No,
to be
it's not
contiguous to the
contiguous.
parcel.
Spot zoning can be interpreted multiple ways. It doesn't necessarily say it has to be contiguous. It generally says in the general vicinity of the area.
Mhm.
And this is an existing use on this property. Unfortunately, it wasn't legally permitted
Understood.
at the time, although it would have been allowed at the time, it wasn't legally permitted. So that's why we're rezoning it now to allow the existing use to remain.
To allow the existing residents to stay in their home.
Correct. Yeah. So that we don't kick them off
Excuse me.
their
Very good.
property, basically.
Okay.
Is there a fine that goes along with that when people don't legally file for zoning or?
So this initially started as a code enforcement case. We were trying to find a avenue to bring them into compliance while also meeting the goals of the town and not causing undue hardship to the property owners who've actually owned the property for decades.
Just seems like we have several of these here lately that are being done in hindsight.
Unfortunately, yes.
Any other questions? And our motion?
I'll make a motion. We take it to full council.
I'll second.
A motion and a second to go to full council. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is adjourned.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.
Yeah, this is boring stuff, believe me.
Well, it's about money now. That's taxes.
Nothing sexy about any of this.
The numbers to you.
Oh, yeah.
All right, we have everybody up front. I'll go ahead and call the Finance Committee meeting to order and turn it over to you, Ms. Rhonda.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. You have before you the December financial report. We have completed 50% of our fiscal year. On the revenues and on the revenue expense summary shows we have collected roughly $1.5 million during December. Year to date, a little over 9 million. We're about 21% of our budget total. We'll start to see some property tax revenues roll in January. On the expense summary, we spent 1.6 million. Our year-to-date expenditures of 22 million is 45% of our budgeted total. Including transfers, our net is 180,000 profit actually, and from the transfer, and for the year to date is just under 11 million of the 10, so about 37%. Any questions on our summary?
I have a quick question. Under buildings and grounds, we're just slightly over budget at this time of the year. Is there a particular reason is that just a one-off, or do we expect that to continue to go up?
Well, sometimes our insurance is coded there, so sometimes the insurance will cause it to be, out of line, because we only pay it twice a year. And then electric bills, some of those kind of things. It's not necessarily consistent expenditures from month to month. But I will look at that and see.
Which insurance you said, is that all in, which insurance in particular is coded
Our
there?
building insurance, our
Okay.
liability and property. So, but by December, it should be caught up a little bit. So I'll look at that and see if there's a reason for that. Any other questions, comments on that? On the revenue summary, the property tax, we collected 1.1 million, year-to-date 2.7. I will make a comment that on the prior year taxes, Dorchester County either did a refund or a reallocation of a fee in lieu that was classified as delinquent, and they that was ended up being a negative number. I'm not sure. I didn't research into that to see when it was actually paid. That's why the negative number on prior year taxes. License permits and fees, 262,000 for the month, for a year-to-date of 2.3 million. Courts and fines, 20,000 for the month, year-to-date of 141. State revenues, we didn't collect any state revenues in December, and our year-to-date is 2.3 million. Parks and Rec, roughly about 10,000 for the month, year-to-date 237,000. Miscellaneous revenues, 62,000, and year-to-date about 1.4 million. I will make a comment on that, on interest income, because we had such a quick turnaround as far as getting the reports out. The state treasurer had not posted the interest income when I had to get these reports out, so I don't have that in there for this report. And transfers in from hospitality, 308,000 for just over $1.8 million. Also, just in general for the revenues, because of the short turnaround, not only interest income, there's probably a couple other line items that are short from what we actually collected, because we couldn't get the entries in quick enough.
Can you elaborate on the false alarm fees? It looks like we budget for that each year, but we're not currently showing any revenues there. Is that typical, or are we changing that revenue to another category?
I believe that it's billed maybe through the police department, but I will, I'll check on that and see. We've talked about that in a number of different ways about how to manage that, but I will, I'll check on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Impact fees, we have collected, year to date for impact fees between residential and commercial, 2.3 million. And we have spent just 383,000 for a net surplus of $1.9 million. And that, again, that's across the categories of Parks and Rec, fire, and municipal government. Anything? Questions there? Okay. Hospitality and accommodations, we received 292,000 in December for hospitality, for a year to date of just under 3 million. We're just under our allocation for the $6 million is what we budgeted. Year to date, our revenues exceed our expenses by 34,000. And local accommodations, we've taken in just under 200,000. We have no expenditures this year out of that fund. So for a net, we're right at 200,000. Questions on any of those? Stormwater, we took in 183,000, mainly through the Dorchester County through the tax billings, for year to date of 618,000. Our expenditures are 86,000, with year to date of $1 million, roughly $1.2 million. Our expenses exceed our revenues year to date by a little over $600,000, and obviously that will catch up in the next 2 months. Any other questions, comments, observations?
Any questions, council members? I guess we'll have a healthy discussion, January 16th.
Yes, we will.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Authorization to issue a purchase order for $108,501 made out to Cooper Motor Company to purchase 3 2023 Dodge Chargers. The funds will come from the general fund, proceeds from vehicle insurance disbursements received in 2024, and the request is from the police department.
I'll make a motion that we approve that.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Authorization to surplus the following police department vehicles: P209, a 2010 Ford Focus with 98,066 miles. P242, a 2012 Dodge Charger with 101,971 miles. And P255, a 2013 Dodge Charger with 149,089 miles.
I'll move to surplus all three, those vehicles.
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second to approve the surplus of all three. Any discussion?
Are we tracking the surplus now for each department? Like, for example, when we surplus these, will the funds then be allocated back to the police department as we previously discussed? Are we doing that yet, or were we going to wait till budget to discuss that further?
I think we're going to wait till budget to discuss it further. Currently, we don't have a fund or a mechanism set up to do that. We certainly can go back and reallocate this, but that's one of our topics at the budget retreat.
Thank you. No further discussion.
All right. Anything else? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Request for approval to allocate an amount not to exceed $15,000 to match Dorchester County for a portion of the cost of a sculpture for Somerville native Medal of Honor recipient, Army Sergeant First Class Christopher Andrew Sillies.
If I may have a moment.
Yes, sir.
We have a concept of what we're thinking of to put, and at this time, it would go on the county's park at 500 Main. And the people behind him is his wife and daughter. If you go to the next one, just to make this a reality, that's his wife and daughter there. So that's a sacrifice made, and those two are still paying. Thank you.
Councilman Jackson, would you like to make that motion?
Pardon me?
Would you like to make that motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion that we approve that funding for the memorial for Chris.
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second to approve the matching funds for the sculpture. Any discussion?
What's the total cost of that sculpture? And how short are we after $30,000?
It's a good question because I'd like to explain all of it. This statue is 98,000 and it'll be paid in 3 increments, which we will be fundraising for the rest of that. To put the display, which I think is very important, behind Chris of his family, we'll run it up to about 200,000. And that's what the sculptor said. I'm thinking this is going to be a veterans memorial, period. So some nice lights, make it worthy of these people that have served and Chris.
Is the county participating in any of the cost?
Yes, they are, I believe, going to try to approve 18,000 so that will give us the whole 33,000 for her to start in January.
And where would these funds come from? Out of our budget?
Rhonda?
Well, we'll be allocating this at budget time or doing this now?
Guess you have a choice. If it's possibly it could come from accommodations if we think it has a tourism relation.
Okay,
It could certainly come from there.
that was my thought.
Otherwise, it can come from fund balance or.
If we approve this and it wasn't in our budget previously, do we have to amend the budget and then have additional readings to amend the budget if we're approving something outside of our budget?
I'll help answer that.
Yeah, I was going to say,
As we've discussed before, one of the exercises that y'all we would like for the council to undertake at the end of our fiscal year is a budget amendment to the current budget that will include all of these kinds of requests that you've approved throughout the course of the fiscal year. So just since I've been here, you all have approved spending outside of the budget or for items that were not budgeted. And so in order to ensure that the proper authorization is made beyond the approval that you're giving here, that's something that I would like to have this council do is do a budget amendment at the end of the fiscal year, which of course would require 2 readings, a public hearing. And you amend an ordinance in the same manner in which you adopt an ordinance. So in the case of the budget, 2 readings, public hearing with all of those items in there. So long answer to the question is yes.
Okay.
But I agree with Rhonda of the potential sources for these funds. Certainly, I think would be an appropriate expenditure out of the local accommodations tax fund, local hospitality tax fund as well, either one or both, some combination of both, or fund balance.
Thank you.
I have one more question. You said that there's going to be later on fundraising for the rest of this. Who's doing that fundraising?
Right now, me. Sculpture in the South is also sponsoring it. They will be signing the contracts and we're going to get a team together. Terry Jenkins is going to help. Sculpture in the South is going to help. Matt's already started a little bit as a Citadel person. And for this cause, I just foresee no problem getting the money. The Medal of Honor Society is getting a hold of Medal of Honor Foundation to see what they can give and all and advice. So
We did award Sculpture in the South $18,000 from the previous application cycle. That was not for this, correct? Okay.
All right, any other discussion, council members? I would just like to say that, while I would hope that the majority would have swiftly been raised by others, it is unique to have Dorchester County and us helping initiate it together. I would like to see this in a prominent location on that Veterans Memorial Park, where folks would be welcome to pay respect to someone from our community that gave the ultimate sacrifice for our country. And I think it's very important. So.
and anybody interested in this story, it's all over online. I find the U.S. Army's version of it more detailed.
The only thing I would add to this is I'd hate for us to provide 15,000 and the county provide 16 or 18,000 and then the rest not get funded and the project not get completed. So hopefully the county will pick up some additional expense there and fundraising will work out. So
I'm faithful that we can probably do it with private donations and maybe state and federal donations.
awesome.
He did die for the country, not just for us.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Next is the town administrator's report.
Thank you, council. If I may, if you'll indulge me and allow me to introduce a guest this evening, Elizabeth Jablonski. She is the Dominion's Economic Development and Local Affairs Manager. She and I met before the holiday to get acquainted and to learn more about what she can do for us and how we can help her at Dominion Energy. She's new to this role, and so I thought she would be an important partner that you would want to meet. So if I can indulge on Elizabeth to come up and introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to introduce myself and come out here tonight. So just like Scott said, I'm not sure if you worked with Tammy Coghill a whole lot, but she retired a few months ago and I was her replacement. And so I'm making my rounds trying to get in front of everybody I can think of, which is a lot of people with the 3 counties. But I'm here and available if you need anything. You'll hear from me, or at least Scott will hear from me regarding any storms that are coming up, any kind of emergency management systems that we have going out. But then I also do economic development. So I work with John Trulock and Michelle McDonald and everybody else over in Dorchester County. If you have any questions, you can let me know.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet y'all.
Actually, I have a quick question.
I'll try to
Sorry.
answer it.
Is there a plan or process for underground utilities in the future for this historic district, at least in the town of Somerville?
I believe some of that being worked on now. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna let Scott talk about that.
Okay, I knew it was for the Main Street resiliency. Know about the other areas. It's not in the works at this time. Okay. Thank you.
That's, yeah. The big piece of the puzzle there. No.
So Elizabeth shared with us, and I shared with y'all the potential tree trimming schedule here in 2025 in Somerville. So there's a map. So if we have questions, we're gonna lean on Elizabeth, but we won't send too many grumbling people to you, we hope. So, and we'll remind them whenever everybody's out of power in the ice storm that's coming, then that's why they have power. That's why. It's because we trimmed our trees. Thank y'all for that indulgence. Couple things I want to touch on real quickly. It was mentioned the mid-year budget retreat. Mid-year budget retreat is next Thursday, January the 16th. 9:00 is when we're going to start at the Low Country Conference Center over in Nexton. Give you a real quick preview of what to expect for that day. The morning we are going to spend discussing project updates, particularly the large road construction projects and other major projects that we have underway. We'll be updating you on those. Rhonda's going to get into more detail on the fiscal year 25 financials beyond some of the information that she presents to you at the monthly council meetings. At this finance committee meeting, we're going to talk about the fiscal year 2026 budget calendar and give you some key dates that we will be targeting as staff to present information to you and seek your feedback as well. You're going to hear department requests. Each of the departments that are going to make requests of the budget beyond the recurring expenses that we include each year, they will be there and get 5 to 10 minutes, department heads, to go through the list. That you will get a copy of their entire list, but they will highlight those things that are highest priorities to them during the course of the meeting. I understand that in the past, there has been some elimination prior to being put in front of you of requests. I don't intend to do that. I want you to see everything that's on their mind so that you have all the information you need to make good decisions as we go forward. And then, of course, we want to spend a good portion of the afternoon, if you would like, talking about your priorities for the upcoming fiscal year. So that's what we can expect for that day. I know we'll be there. It'll be a long day, be a lot of information that we're going to throw at you, but I think it's going to be helpful to all of us as we work towards fiscal year 26 and getting that thing adopted. I want to have the budget from a staff standpoint sewn up and ready to present to you for adoption, have second reading with very little doubt about what it is you're going to be approving or not come the June meeting, the regular council meeting in June, so that we can have this thing buttoned up by July 1. Any questions about that? Okay, we are having lunch. We'll be eating lunch there.
Well, one question, maybe a clarification.
Sure.
You said you're not doing the initial skim off the top
Correct.
to make us be the bad guys, correct?
You will be the bad guys.
Okay,
That's
I just wanted
correct.
to
That's
clarify.
correct.
Thank you.
We appreciate that.
It's your budget. It's your budget.
That'll actually be at the council, at the budget retreat, though, not necessarily at this mid-year budget meeting.
Well,
correct? Or
yes. So I want staff to give you the list and talk about the things that are most important to them as in advance of us starting into the budget for fiscal 26. So this will be the first time you'll hear about these things. This is the first time you'll see these things. Maybe not the first time for some of them, obviously, but for this upcoming year, this will be the first time you will have seen these things. So that when we have our first budget retreat, budget meeting, then none of this will be a surprise to you, and you will have had an opportunity individually to contemplate some of these things that they're gonna put in front of you in next week. Okay. Employee evaluations are to be completed this week by Friday, and merit raises will have been assigned. All the department heads have been working very hard to provide employee evaluations to each of the members of their staff. And so we will be, they are sending their evaluations to the Human Resources Department, and then sending along to Rhonda and her staff the recommendations for each of those employees' increases. So just want to let you know that that is moving forward, and those increases will begin to be reflected on in February's financial report. Yeah. And then I mentioned to you in my weekly report a few weeks ago about a discussion that's being had by our partners on the Maple Street project. We are meeting Wednesday with all of them to sit down and work through some issues that are seem to be plaguing the project at this point. And it's our intent to work with all of the partners to kind of smooth over some of the rough patches that we've encountered here in the last couple of months in an effort to try and get this thing moving more quickly than it has been. Talk to all of the partners individually. Now we're going to sit down with each of them in one large meeting, and GW and I and Bonnie have had conversations with other helpful partners in trying to figure out how we can kind of spur this project along. And so just wanted to keep you up to date with that. And as things progress, I will inform you about that. Any questions about anything that I've covered so far?
I'd like to say that the Maple Street project appears to be coming out real well. And a lot of people are concerned who are giving up their properties to make it work. They were afraid that they were going to lose the front part of their homes. Now we're seeing that they've got a wide stretch.
Well, thank you, Mr. Brown. I really appreciate that input. That's very helpful. Yeah, I mean, there have been a lot of challenges with the project so far. I am not satisfied with the progress that we're making, and that's one of the reasons that we're having this meeting on Wednesday. And so I hope that we can get those sidewalks installed even quicker than what we anticipate right now. Any questions about anything I have not discussed? Okay. Thank you, Mayor, Council.
Thank you, Scott.
There's no executive session for January for Finance Committee.
I would move to adjourn.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.